Captain Dan here, Goober Time Guide Service. We recently did a video showing you how to make our DIY no snag drifting sinkers right here. And we just want to thank you guys for showing all the love there. That video is doing really well for us and we appreciate your support. I'm very happy with the way these turned out. We've been putting them to work on our guide trips, running our boat on the James River, catching some monster fish this fall. But as I was researching and working through my idea, I came across a couple great ideas on YouTube that I want to put together in a video here. This is still a style of weight I'm going to keep stocked on my boat, but there's another set I want to make for springtime when I'm going through some really nasty stuff dragging down the river. Let's stop yapping and get over to the workbench and get this project started. Now, one of the very first things we want to do with this project is start getting some lead melted down. So while we gather our supplies, we're going to plug in that lead pot and melt down a couple ingots. Now to make our lead, we're using a Do-It mold right here. This is model FDS8A. This is the Finesse Drop Shot 8A. This has 8 different cavities in it. We're gonna use this biggest one and drill it out so we can make some lead to insert into our dragging weights. So what I'm gonna do is take a clamp and make sure I'm shutting down this mold here, really clamping it together so it can't spread apart on me. And that'll hold it in place while I drill it. Now that big cavity is this one right here. We're gonna take a 3/8 inch drill bit and drill that out. All right, we're gonna check that out. We got all the way down to the bottom of the cavity there. Now we're ready to pour some lead. Now I'm not saying you have to give this video a thumbs up, but my sources tell me that if you don't, the next time you catch an absolute giant fish, you're gonna be reaching over with that net trying to scoop that thing up and you're gonna go right overboard. So do the smart thing, people. Hit that thumbs up button. It's free and we really appreciate your support. It helps the channel out a lot. So now that we have that cavity drilled out, we're just gonna go ahead and pour a bunch of lead right here. I like to make a big old pile of them right here, then come back and clean them up later. So just out of curiosity, we're gonna get a couple of these on the scale and weigh them. One of them is right around 1.2 ounces, so I'm actually gonna load up 10 of these things. Okay, so there's 10 right there. We're at about 12.4 ounces. They're about 1.25 ounces a piece. Now here's the design of our dragging weight here. Comparing it to our old one, you can tell they're quite a bit different. This is more of a stick weight. This is what I consider more of a dragging weight. Pretend this anchor is a piece of junk laying on the bottom of a river, maybe a stump, a tree, or actually an anchor or some kind of riprap, whatever. Your dragging weight's coming through. You might get your sinker caught right here, but hopefully it pops up and goes over that and continues to drag along the bottom. Having a little bit taller and longer weight, you try and get that swivel up above any debris that you're coming from, because remember your line's attached to it. It's kind of pulling that straight as you go. You got this part laying flat along the bottom, going nice and smooth, and you've got this nice little curve right here, which is gonna help encourage the weight to get up and over any debris. Now this design here with your line kind of attached perpendicular to the surface that you're dragging along is really designed to help try and get you through some nastier stuff. If you really know you're going through some trees or rocks or debris or whatever it might be, you know your river and what you're dragging. If you're just dragging a mud bottom, something like this is gonna be perfectly fine, but it's probably gonna ride through the water like this, dragging your sinker close to the bottom, or maybe even standing straight up if it's just barely touching bottom. So keep that in mind depending on what you're dragging. If you like this style right here, you can copy my measurements, but remember this is very adaptable. The way I have this one set up right here is I've got this tube right here. This tube measures 14 inches and this is 22 inches. The way this works out is my tube covers up that section, and down here I can pile my weights in right along the bottom, and if I shove 4 of these weights in the bottom, I've got about 5 ounces of weight on there, and this tube is partially sealed depending on how you approach things here, but you could really seal this up pretty well and get some air and buoyancy in there to keep that top riding high in the water. And like I was saying before, if you want to add more weight, lengthen this section. If you want to add more buoyancy or reduce buoyancy or keep it lower to the bottom so it doesn't have such a tall stance when it's dragging along the bottom like this one does, play around with your weights, customize this however you want to. That's what I love about these. I can make them up for whatever situation I'm going into. So making the lead is really the only time consuming part. After that, this process really flies. There's not a whole lot to it. Cut your tubing down to length, cut your heat shrink down to length, figure out how many leads you want in there, add in a snap swivel and some hot glue, and we're off to the races. So I'm gonna batch up some supplies here, cut everything down to length, and we're just gonna fly through a batch of these things right here. Now all the supplies we use in this build here today are down in the description, so make sure you check that out. But all we've got is some 3/8 inch heat shrink tubing right here. I've got it in green, you can get it in any color you want. And then I've just got a roll of 1/4 inch tubing with a 3/8 outer diameter. So we're gonna chop a whole bunch of this up to size and get rolling here. Now this step here is kind of optional. There's different ways you can attach your swivels if you want to, or you can use other things to connect your weight to your line. But what I like to do is take some hot glue, put it inside the tube, and squeeze it in there. Let it fill down the tube a little bit, and then shove my swivel in there. So what that's going to do is it's going to lock my swivel in a little bit. It's going to waterproof the end of this, and then the heat shrink on the other side is going to make this trap some air and make that a buoyant section for me in my weight. Now those set up in no time at all, so you're pretty much ready to work right away. The only thing you gotta do is make sure your lead's cooled down. At this point I take the tubing, make sure the swivel side's up at the top, start feeding it down inside my heat shrink. It helps to kind of straighten things out a little bit as you shove those in there. I like to push those in there so it's just seated a little bit in, giving that heat shrink something to kind of curl around and lock into place. And at that point, the way I've designed these, I've got about that much room left. I can shove some weights in there. These go in pretty easy. I just like to keep a screwdriver handy to shove them in there, and they'll stop when they hit that tubing. 3 and 4. Now's your chance to make any final adjustments that you need to. You want a smooth transition between your tubing and your weights, which I can barely find it right now. Now it's time to heat shrink. That's all there is to it. Let that heat shrink cool down a little bit and you've got yourself a perfect little dragon weight. I hope you enjoyed that video here today. We really enjoyed the project and I can't wait to put these to work on the river. If you have any ideas how to improve this project, or if you plan on making for yourself, we want to hear from you in the comment section down below. While you're down there, check out the description area. We've linked all the supplies for this video, as well as a couple other videos you're going to want to check out because this one's over. Later.